guys, it's Sam. Welcome back to Vlogmas. And today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated releases for 2024. Also just going to scoot over here because we're going to put covers here. So that'll make it easier for editing me, which I always forget to do whenever I'm going to insert a cover into something. There are actually quite a few books that seem intriguing that are coming out next year. I say this with skepticism because I just feel like this year was slightly weak. There wasn't a lot, or there was maybe more at the beginning of the year. I don't know. I just have felt like I haven't been super hype on the new releases lately, and then there's a bunch next year that I feel like I'm pretty hyped about. Let's see. Also, all of these release dates could change. A lot of them are really wonky. A lot of them aren't they seem all really spread out. Some of these might be placeholders. I don't know. So don't rely only on me for your actual release dates because these could all change and get pushed around and whatever. I just realized there was a few that were supposed to be coming out this year. They're probably not going to come out next year, and so I should just look and see if they have actual release dates. So first in January 23rd, is Fatebound by Sarah Al-Arifi. And this is the author of The Final Strife, which I found really interesting and that I need to continue with that series actually. But this is a fae and elf fantasy series. The start of a fae and elf fantasy series. It seems like our main character is an elf, gets exiled from elven lands, and ends up in the fae court. Fae and elves. Because these days, a lot of people combine fae and elf lore. But this is separate. So, I don't know. I'm intrigued about this. Next is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first book in a new fantasy series by Robert Jackson Bennett, and I love Robert Jackson Bennett. I have not gotten back into his Cities series, but I loved the Foundry Side series. Foundry Side series is one of my favorite series of all time. He does something so interesting with fantasy and tropes and things in that series, and making fantasy and sci-fi combined with it still being fantasy. Very cool. In this, it looks like he's tackling a mystery element with fantasy, so I'm intrigued by that, and honestly, I just really like what he does with worlds and world building and stuff. His books are very creative and just feel like something different and a breath of fresh air within the fantasy genre. So I'm very excited about this. That comes out on February 6th, if I didn't already say that. Then 2 books on February 13th. First is a novella, What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. We're going to see a couple of T. Kingfishers on this list. But this is the next novella in the sort of novella series. It might just be a duology, but the first was What Moves the Dead, which was based on sort of inspired by Fall of the House of Usher. And this follows that same main character after what happened in the first novella, encountering more horror things. Because that was a horror novella. It was a horror series. We'll see what this has in store. But this year I fell in love with T. Kingfisher in a lot of ways. I haven't read as much of her stuff as I would like, but I want to. And they have a big backlog, and they also churn out books, so can't wait. Then, another favorite. I'm so excited about this. The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. If you forget, Catherine Arden is one of my favorite authors because she wrote The Winter of the Witch. I mean, she wrote the whole Bear and the Nightingale, Winter Night trilogy. But The Winter of the Witch is one of the best books ever written. So this is a new book, new series, not even a series, I think this is going to be standalone. And this is more of a historical fiction novel with a speculative twist apparently. So this is taking place during World War I, and it follows a combat nurse and then her brother who is also in the war, because everyone was in the war at that time. Not everyone, but a lot of people. That war killed a lot of people. So the woman ends up finding out that her brother died in battle, but the details around it don't make any sense, and she's hearing some things that are have a speculative nature to them about what's going on, so she's trying to discover what happened to him. He wakes up, ends up befriending a German soldier, and they both don't want to go back to the killing fields. Again, this is World War I, not II. So not a Nazi soldier, a German soldier. And then they end up taking refuge with this mysterious man who's gotten out of the trenches, and then they start seeing ghosts and things. So there's these speculative, I'm sure it's going to be sort of maybe a magical realism element of what's real, what's not, trauma, fantastical elements, whatever. So different from Winter Night a lot, but Catherine Arden, beautiful. So those are both on February 13th. Then on February 15th, we have An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is supposed to be another companion in the Dowry of Blood series, but I don't believe it's following the same characters. But it's another take on a vampire story. I believe this one following Carmilla, which is gay. Dowry of Blood was very gay, so I'm glad they're taking this on as well. Then on March 21st, we have Song of the Huntress by Lucy Holland. And this is one of those myth retellings that have become very popular lately, but this, instead of being a Greek retelling, because I'm kind of over the Greek retellings, is a retelling of the Wild Hunt set in Britain, ancient Britain. So I'm very excited about this. Love a Wild Hunt situation. Then on April 9th, we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, another favorite author coming out with something new, and I'm very excited that she is leaving the Grishaverse. It seems like really fully spreading her wings. So let's get more Alex Stern. Let's get more stuff like this. It sounds very interesting. Another sort of historical, but much more fantasy than the Warm Hands of Ghosts even sounded like. This is taking place in the Spanish Golden Age, which is another time period that I don't feel like is covered a ton in fantasy. So it's around the time of the Inquisition and things, and it follows a main character who is like a maid and then has like magical abilities, and her mistress discovers that she has that and then gets like sort of thrown into like nobility, not her necessarily, but being like a tool for nobility during this time. So sounds good. And look at this cover. For the religious trauma girlies, am I right? Then we have another 2 on April 23rd. We have The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark, and this sounds amazing. I think this might be a standalone or might be the first in a new series, I'm not quite sure. It's not a part of the Master of Jin series, although I do hope that he does return to that series eventually because I love it. But this is following assassins. They're not cats, they don't have tails, they say this in the tagline. But they are dead. They're dead assassins who've been brought back to life to like serve as assassins. And if they don't fulfill their like quests or whatever, their assassin, their hits, whatever, then they for sure die. Dark and twisty, I love it. The next release on April 23rd is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and this does sound like it's going to be potentially intriguing. I mean, Emily Henry, like queen of romance these days, I think it's going to be really interesting, but it follows 2 characters who, like our main character has this fiance who she's like so in love with, and he realizes that he's actually always been in love with his childhood best friend, and so breaks up with her, goes and like gets engaged to his childhood best friend. She's left alone and just like doesn't know what to do. Childhood best friend also had, I think, a fiance or partner or whatever. And so our main character and childhood best friend's ex-fiance start falling in love. Cute. Then on April 30th, we have Heavenly Tyrant by Siren J. Zhao. This is the second book in the Iron Widow series. This was delayed. It was supposed to come out this year, and they were like, hey, for it to be written well and everything, it's going to come out next year, which good for them. I appreciate that. I'm very excited for this. Female rage, a polyamorous love fueling mechs. What is there not to love about that? On May 28th, we have Evocation by S.T. Gibson. I know, 2 for S.T. Gibson this year. I don't know how they do it. This is about secret societies and occultists and psychics, and this cover looks like a tarot card, and it's going to be very gay, because everything S.T. Gibson writes is very gay. I believe there's a Faustian deal. Again, so many things to love about this. June 4th, we have Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the 3rd book in the Between Earth and Sky series. The first book was Black Sun. So this is Native American folklore mythology in a fantasy setting and like apocalyptic and great. I can't really say much about it. It's a 3rd book. But I think it's going to be the finale, and I've been looking forward to it for a while. Then on July 18th, we have hopefully The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri. This is the final book in the Burning Kingdom series. Again, 3rd book in a series. Can't talk a lot about it, but it's sapphic. It's epic. It's nature magic. It's great. And finally, on August 20th, we have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. So another T. Kingfisher next year. This is supposed to be like a dark retelling of the Brothers Grimm Goose Girl like myth, fairy tale, folklore kind of thing. And T. Kingfisher always does like folklore-y, fairy tale-esque things. So that's kind of their shtick. So I plan to read this because it sounds great. Also, we do not have release dates for these. You know one of them that I'm going to talk about for sure. I'll save it for last. First is Electo the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. It's supposed to come out sometime in 2024. They don't have an exact release date yet as of the filming of this video. It's probably going to be in fall. That's when they tend to come out. But that's the final book in the Gideon the Ninth Lock Tomb series. Very weird. It's a very weird little series. I love it so much. And finally, I've been saying this like basically every year, but on booktube. Maybe. Maybe we'll get the Thorn of Emberlain. Nice college. Maybe. When I made this video last year, I believe he like turned in a manuscript or something. I don't know what's happened. Maybe one of you has an update about that. I feel like a clown. It's gonna happen eventually. Like, we have a cover. We've had a cover for like 6 years. But I have more faith that this will happen before like another Patrick Rothfuss like Name of the Wind book or like another Game of Thrones book. Like, I think this will happen in the way that I'm not sure those will. But I say it every year, so Who knows? But that is it for all the books that I'm excited about for 2024. If you're like, hey, you didn't give full synopsis of everything. At this point, like, a lot of these authors are authors that I really love. Almost all of these are people that I've read from. Are all of these people I've read from before? I'm pretty sure, besides like one. So I know I'm going to read them. There's continuations of series, authors I trust. Like, I don't tend to really go into synopses a ton these days. I just kind of am like, is it a vibe that I think I'm going to like? Okay. I don't want to read the synopsis. I got spoiled so much by synopses over the years, or like, you know, having an expectation of something that's totally different. So at this point, if I'm going to read it, I'm going to read it. And I'm just telling you what things I'm going to read next year, hopefully. We'll see. I'm also going to try to get my TBR down continually, which is a constant goal. You hear about that later. All right. Let me know if there's any books that you think that I missed, or any books, just tell me like which books you're excited about, and if you plan on reading any of these as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.